House of EdTech, Episode 31.
Hi, this is Andrea Trevisano from TAC.com. You're listening to the House of EdTech with Christopher Nesi.
This episode of House of EdTech is brought to you by Today'sMeet.com. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi. And the House of EdTech podcast explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing information you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose being, whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. Coming up in this episode, I have my EdTech thought, EdTech recommendation, another House of EdTech VIP, and my conversation with my special guest, Miss Katrina Keene, who's an instructional design consultant. But before I get to that, just a couple of announcements I'd like to share with you before I get started. And first and foremost, top of the list, some personal news. I am going to be a father again. Yep, that's right. Caitlin and I are expecting our second child coming up this August in 2015. We're very excited. Caitlin is very happy. She's going through typical beginning of the pregnancy, thing. So her health comes and goes. And we can't wait to give Miles a brother or a sister. And I look forward to sharing more excitement about that in the coming months leading up to this House of EdTech expansion project. Not as exciting as expanding my family, but there is a new podcast available to you that you can check out. And Jeff Bradbury from TeacherCast has started and released a new podcast called Educational Podcasting Today. And in this podcast, Jeff is going to be talking about the art of podcasting and using WordPress to create your podcast, along with a lot of other tools and resources that you as a teacher can use to potentially start your own podcast. So if that's something you're interested in, and even if you're not quite interested in, definitely check out Educational Podcasting Today over on teachercast.net by my good friend, Jeff Bradbury. What else? Coming up, again, this episode is being released, or if you're listening to it the day it comes out, it is March 8th, 2015. And this Wednesday on March 11th, I will be moderating Utah EdChat. My good friend from Utah, Derek Larson, former guest of the program and big-time contributor back in episode 26, he reached out and invited me to moderate UT EdChat, which will take place again on Wednesday, March 11th at 11 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we're going to be talking about creation versus curation in terms of content as a teacher. So I'm really looking forward to moderating that chat. And that should be about an hour, between 5 and 7 questions that I have to come up with. And I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to be trying to spark the conversation coming up for Utah EdChat. So I do want to thank Derek for inviting me to moderate that chat. And I hope if you are listening to this before then, that you come and join the chat. And if you can, when you come out, let me know that you heard about the chat here on the podcast. I'd love to make a connection with you and get to know you a little bit better and have you participate in a really good conversation. Again, and that's hashtag UT EdChat. And that's going to be again on March 11th. As I sat down before I recorded this episode, I had a really awesome conversation on Google Hangouts with Stacy Lindis, who was my guest in episode 29 of the podcast, and a former House of EdTech VIP, Mr. AJ Bianco. And we had a great conversation that I'm not going to share any details about right now, but I can say one, in terms of technology, that it was my first time having a conversation with 3 people online and recording it and hoping that I'll be able to use it. Well, never mind. I will definitely be able to use it in a future episode. And I look forward to sharing that 3-way conversation with you in a coming episode. And it was a great conversation. And really what the topic was about was how to encourage your colleagues to use technology and integrate it into education. So we had a great chat, and I'm looking forward to bringing you that conversation in a future episode. And speaking of former guests like Stacy, if you did not know, on Mondays, I tweet out something I brand as the House of EdTech Rewind. And that's basically where I go through the back catalog and I choose a previous episode and I just kind of retweet it out with the title and a link to the show notes. So that's something that you can always check out on Mondays if you missed an episode, or maybe you forgot that an episode had taken place and you see the tweet and you're like, oh, I want to hear that episode again. That's something I promote on Mondays on Twitter, the House of EdTech Rewind. But enough about me. Let's get to my featured conversation with Miss Katrina Keene. Katrina has spent the last 14 years in K-12 technology education and enjoys researching and integrating new technologies into classrooms. She is currently an instructional technology consultant. She is based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she also does work in Florida, which we'll talk about how that works. In 2014, she earned her doctorate in instructional technology and distance education from Nova Southeastern University. Katrina's passion for technology and education is strengthened through the phenomenal educators she works with every day. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Katrina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you talk a little bit about your background as to how you became a technology consultant, what you did before that, and kind of what you do now?
Well, before getting into technology, I was a kindergarten teacher, first grade, third grade, K-5 computers, and then decided to start my master's in instructional technology. And so earned my master's in 2004, and that's when I applied for a job as a instructional technology facilitator for a school district in St. Louis. And so that kind of began my journey with instructional technology. And since then, I've worked with various schools and have moved into a consultant role where now I'm currently consulting for several schools, but I'm also the director of innovation for Canterbury School in Fort Myers, Florida. So I'm there 2 weeks out of every month and get to work with the phenomenal teachers there.
Now, just because I'm curious, how did you acquire a job where you get to travel and, I guess, not really work from a distance, but there's quite a commute there?
Well, they initially, Canterbury wanted to hire me on, and move down to Fort Myers. Unfortunately, that was, I was unable to move last summer. And so we kind of explored some different options, and I proposed to them the consulting role where I could still work full time for them, even when I'm in Chattanooga. So, and then I travel 2 weeks out of every month, and it works out. So I stay pretty plugged in when I'm in Chattanooga and get to work on a lot of the higher level, more, innovative things with the tech plan. And I just got through writing the new BYOT plan, which will start in the start of 2015-16 school year, and also designed a new parent university for Canterbury. So there's been some large projects going on, which the consulting role has enabled me to do that.
Large projects are certainly what make our worlds go round these days.
Absolutely.
Now, what fascinated me about you when I started to learn more about you as I internet stalked you and approached you for this conversation was your doctoral research in instructional technology implementation. Now, I am not yet a doctor. I don't know if I'll ever, climb to that level of academia, but I do have my master's, and my master's thesis kind of focused on professional development and some of the struggles that high school teachers face when they want to learn new things. And part of what I found out was that school districts sometimes have issues giving teachers technology and training them properly. So I already think that our interests are kind of along the same line. Talk a little bit about your research and some of the things that you've found out.
Certainly. My research was driven by several experiences that I had while I was the classroom teacher. I was a part of many different schools where technology integration just did not exist. And I came in very charged up and ready to go, wanting to integrate technology, but I just did not have the tools available in the classroom for me to use technology with my students. So I found myself purchasing technology on my own so that I could use it in the classroom. And I never understood why so many administrators were not driven to write grants, to support teachers in that area. So when I started my doctorate, I knew right away that I wanted to study administrators and the barriers involved in acquiring technology or in technology integration in schools. So the title of my dissertation was Administrative Barriers in School, Administrative Barriers in Instructional Technology Concerning Administrative and Teacher Roles. In that research, I got to determine several different barriers, such as, funding, professional development, like you mentioned, and just day-to-day activities that have hindered, I guess, schools in acquiring technology and in just infusing it every single day. So it was interesting, and it was, something I know a lot of doctoral students struggle with coming up with even a concept of what they want to study. And I knew right away that I wanted to focus on administrators, and their day-to-day roles in regards to instructional technology.
Now, in your research, I don't want to skip right to the end of the dissertation because it takes a lot of work, as I guess. Of all those factors that you've researched, what do you think is, I guess, the most hindering that administrators face when they want to implement technology?
I think that a lot of administrators feel as though funding is the issue. However, in my own experience, there are grants available. There are ways of kind of getting around that barrier. But what I found on the teacher side of things is professional development. They just didn't feel like they got enough professional development. They didn't feel supported in the classroom. They wanted somebody in there, and they currently want somebody in there every single day supporting them, with instructional technology. They're just not, I guess, or they're fearful of using new technologies, and they just want somebody there side by side with them, teaching them and working with them and their students. So
I guess that's good for you, being somebody who consults and works directly with teachers.
Absolutely. It is. It's a really fun job. I get to go in. I still get my fix of students and working with teachers, and it's a lot of fun.
In the schools that you consult, do you specialize in any one age group, like elementary, middle, or high school, or do you have the flexibility to work with all grade levels and all grade level teachers?
I work with all grade levels, mainly K-12. I'm actually getting ready to do a couple of workshops for college level. I've been asked in Chattanooga to do that. So I do work a little bit with colleges. I find myself gravitating more toward the K-5 environment only because that's the experience that I've had, teaching kindergarten, first grade, third grade. So I enjoy that. I love going into the primary schools, getting the hugs from the students and working with them. So that's a lot of fun. But I do get to work mainly K-12.
Now, in your day-to-day activities, what are some of the things that you're doing each day?
Each day, especially when I'm down in Fort Meyers at Canterbury, every single day I spend my time in classrooms with teachers, teachers that are all over the spectrum, ones that come to me and they say, I've never even made a PowerPoint, all the way up to teachers that are using augmented reality, that are creating books with their students. And, they come to me and they say, hey, I need help. I want you to come teach with me, show me some things that I can do. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll meet with teachers ahead of time, get an idea of their curriculum, what they're working on, their end goals, and then we kind of, feed in the technology from there. And I try to stress to them, not to use technology, just to use technology, but to enhance their lessons. And so we often go through many different apps, many different programs that they could possibly use to enhance those lessons.
Now, this might seem like a strange question, but it's my show and I'm curious. When you work with teachers, do you get more, I guess, satisfaction or take more pride in working with teachers who you really help because they're not that great with technology? Or do you like or prefer to work with teachers who, they're on the ball, they could, I don't want to say do your job, but, they know technology, they're doing great things with it. Where do you stand on that?
No, I think that's a great question. I often get, and the only way I can describe it, I guess I get chills from teachers that I meet initially, or they come to me initially, and they've almost never used technology. And I'll give you an example. I had a teacher come to me just a couple weeks ago, and she said, I made my very first PowerPoint. So this is a teacher that just, has not had much experience in the classroom, is very, very scared of technology. And she was so excited that she had made her first PowerPoint. Well, so I told her, I gave her some ideas on how we can build on that. And she brought me a rubric just 2 days ago. And in that rubric, her students are now going to be creating a shared Google Doc, shared Google Slides within their groups, and then they're going to use the app Erasma to create augmented reality. And they're each going to create a 1-minute video of their families in Spanish. This is a Spanish teacher, and then they're going to tag that video, of course, to a trigger image of their families. So she is now using some apps that are actually going to redefine her classroom. And all it took was me having a conversation with her, going in there, team teaching with her and supporting her. And those are the teachers that I almost get teary-eyed. I get chills from teachers like that. The teachers
wait.
Oh, okay.
Just she went from never having used PowerPoint to working with you, and now she's doing virtual reality.
That is correct.
That's
correct.
amazing.
It is. And, it's not that she's not quite doing it on her own yet. She came to me, she said, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. Can you come in and team teach with me and help me with this? And my answer is absolutely. And I spent the entire day with her and her students and worked with every class period, explaining the rubric, explaining what was going on, how we were going to do this. And she openly said in front of her students, I'm learning right along with you. And for a teacher to be able to do that's huge. That's huge progress. And so, it makes me so happy. I get so thrilled.
That is a good feeling, because I think there are still too many teachers who are afraid to say, I don't know to adults, let alone say, I don't know in front of their own students. So, I mean, that's a great story. And, I'm sure you have a lot of experiences like that.
It is a great story. And, I'm so proud of her. I feel proud of her like I always felt proud of my students when they made gains in the classroom.
Well, see, now that's the nice part about a position like yours is not only are the students kind of your students, but now all the adults are your students as well.
Absolutely. They absolutely are. And what's neat about this position is I get to see an entire school grow, not just one classroom, every year. I get to see an entire school grow. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this, that we have these huge projects going on. So I'm getting to see big growth, big changes happening, and in a very short period of time.
And as we said at the top of the interview, since you're working in, I guess, 2 states at least, you have quite the reach. So that's really awesome.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Now, real quick, what are some of your favorite technologies that, I mean, you've already mentioned things like Haiku Deck and Google Slides. What are some of your other favorite things to recommend to teachers?
Sure. One of the ones that I use regularly is Book Creator. We have a lot of iPads in the school, and so oftentimes we use Book Creator because that can be used K-12. A lot of the foreign language teachers use it. They embed video, audio. That's one of my favorites. Telegami is another one. The teachers like to create a video, almost an avatar of themselves, explaining lessons. I'm very interested and like to use the flipped classroom model. And so therefore I introduce a lot of teachers to show me and explain everything as well as educreations. And I usually show them all 3 and then have them choose which one, that they would like to use to create lessons. And I have teachers that are doing variations of the flipped classroom. So I have them using those apps in various different ways. Some other ones, of course, I like Evernote. I use that one on my own all the time. We're currently in about case 6. We're going to be using the green screen app. That one's fairly new, but we're going to be using that in foreign language and in the K3.
Kids are going to love green screening. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. They're going to have a blast with it. So the teachers are coming up with all kinds of lessons and being creative, and we're going to embed that into several different grade levels. Erasmus is another one of my favorite apps, and that one also can be used K-12. And I've had a lot of fun with that app this school year, enabling the school all over the school with hidden auras. And so the students like to go around and try to find the hidden auras in the school. That one we've used a lot in the classrooms to label different things around the classroom, and then the students hold their phone or their iPad, whatever their device is, over the auras, and then a video pops up, or a website or some kind of an informational piece. Another favorite app of mine is Nearpod. The teachers, I have several science teachers that are using Nearpod and creating their own lessons. That one has been very beneficial.
I'm a big fan of Nearpod. I got to experience it in a lot of depth this past summer, and it's amazing what you can do when you really make those lessons interactive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have in our lower school, they're using code.org, and they're doing a lot of coding. They're also using Scratch to do coding. Those are two of my favorites. Oh, another one that I love and that's very, very popular, of course, is Kahoot. So I use Kahoot for our parent university meetings, for trainings that I have with teachers, to gamify the professional developments, make them more fun. It also gives me some insight, almost survey-like insight to, different questions that I may have for the teachers. So I play a quick game with them of Kahoot, and I get some of the information that I need. So that's always a fun one. That one's used in the classroom a lot as well.
Now, let me switch gears just a little bit,
Sure.
But along the same lines. What are some of the tools? I mean, you mentioned Evernote, but what other technologies do you use professionally that make your job and your life easier?
One of the newest apps that I'm using and newest devices that I'm using is Swivel, SWIVL. It's a technology tool where you can set your device, your iPad, your phone, on it, and while I'm presenting, it actually captures the video, but it moves along with me. I wear a little lanyard around my neck, and it captures my voice, and then the device moves my phone or my iPad right along with me. And then it uploads the video to something called Swivel Cloud, where I can edit it and push that out to parents or students or teachers. So that one's been a lot of fun.
I have seen the Swivel, and I am now very jealous of you, Katrina.
Yeah, that one's been great. And I actually, our first parent university launched last week. And at the very end, I asked if anybody had any questions to end things. And 3 hands shot up, and they wanted to know what that device was that was sitting on the table next to me. So that one's been fun.
That is very cool.
I use a lot, Google Hangouts a lot. And I like to Google Hangout with other schools. In fact, I just did a kind of like mystery Skype, but we did a mystery Google Hangout, just myself and a group of teachers in Indiana. And we Google Hangout, had a Google Hangout and got to guess where each other were. So in the United States. So that was a lot of fun. I get to meet up with a lot of other instructional technologists or technology directors, teachers via Google Hangouts or Skype. So that's used a lot as well.
Awesome. So you are very, very entrenched in EdTech. I love it.
Absolutely.
Now, also coming up this year, you're going to be presenting probably at a lot of places, because I just kind of get that vibe from you. But 2 that I know of, again, going back to me researching you, I know you're going to be at ISTE, and just before ISTE, you're going to be at TCT, or Tomorrow's Classrooms Today. Can you share a little bit about what you're going to be presenting at ISTE and maybe also at TCT?
Sure. At ISTE, I'm presenting actually about mystery Skyping. And one of the reasons that I picked mystery Skype was because you can use mystery Skype from kindergarten through 12th grade. And what's neat about mystery Skyping is that when you pair up two grade levels, so, one 5th grade talking to another 5th grade somewhere else in the world, the questions that the students come up with are unreal. The imagination, the creativity that they have in trying to figure out where that other classroom is in the world it's just so neat to watch. And I just did a mystery Skype the other day with a kindergarten classroom, and the very first question that they asked was, "Did you wear coats to school today?" And I thought, what a great question. Of course, a 6-year-old came up with that, and it led after several questions, led us to figure out where they were in the United States. But the school that I'm at right now, we've mystery Skyped with 7 countries now. And so, that was something that I wanted to bring to ISTE and also to TCT and talk with other educators about the use of mystery Skype. You can also use, of course, Google Hangouts, FaceTime, what have you, to talk with other classrooms around the world. Of course, you have time zone barriers when it comes to Skyping with other classrooms around the world, but it's proven to be very beneficial. It's really, really neat. So I wanted to bring that to ISTE and also to TCT.
Now, I have a quick question about mystery Skypes. I've heard of the term. I've never actually had the opportunity to participate in one, but I'm curious. The initial conversation is merely just to determine where is the other group? Who are we talking to? Where are they?
That's correct. Initially, it's a geography lesson. So, that is done between 2 grade levels. They don't have to necessarily be, 5th grade. They can be, 5th grade, 4th grade. They could even be, I've seen it done a lot with foreign language where they're practicing their language skills. And I know we had a Spanish classroom, Skype with another classroom in Mexico and, practice their language skills. But initially, it is a geography lesson, and they have to ask yes/no questions to figure out where in the world the other class is. And it's really neat to see or listen to the questions, from kindergarten up through 12th grade, and the how those questions grow and kind of develop as the students get older. So after that, after they figured out where the other classroom is, a lot of times those classrooms then become Skype buddies, and they do weekly lessons together or monthly lessons together in other disciplines besides just geography.
I think that's the best part is when you can then follow up, because I remember when I was in elementary school, we did the pen pal thing. And actually, now that I think about it real quick, I don't ever think I got a response. But that's what we did back in the day. We just had we had pen pals.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, Katrina, I want to thank you for taking time today and sharing some insight into what you do. I especially enjoyed learning more about your doctoral research and also what you just mentioned about mystery Skyping, which I think is still really cool. And one day I do hope to actually do that. How can people get in touch with you and pick your brain and continue to learn from you?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at TeachinTechGal. It's TeachinTechGal, and also at teachintechgal.com. Also, my email address is teachintechgal@gmail.com, so I can be reached any different way. I'm all over social media, so anyone can find me pretty much at any time.
And just because I'm curious, how come there's no G in Teachin' Tech Gal?
However, 10 years later, since I've made up Teachin' Tech Gal, I almost wish I would have put the G in because so many people add it in and they say, they can't find me. But I just, at the time, just thought teaching was kind of different, and so went with Teachin' Tech Gal.
Well, I did have to look twice, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad we were able to connect.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Awesome. And I do look forward to meeting you at TCT and also during the ISTE conference. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And thanks again, Katrina. I really appreciated once again having her on the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And I hope if you have any questions, you do reach out to Katrina. And if you have any feedback about the conversation or anything in this episode, I hope that you'll head over to the show notes over on the website, chrisnessy.com. And before I get to my EdTech thought for this episode, I just want to take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, Today's Meet, over at todaysmeet.com. If you want to add back-channeling to your classroom, this is the way to do it without potentially the hassle or the fear of using something like Twitter. Today's Meet offers you the same idea, a 140-character message that you can have a lot more control over in terms of moderating and teaching your students how to use something that resembles Twitter if you're not comfortable using that in your classroom. Head over to todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech and sign up for Today's Meet for free, or you can also take advantage of their teacher tools And for $5 a month, you get some really extensive moderating powers over your Today's Meet chats. And again, with Today's Meet, you have the ability to open up a private chat room, and you can integrate that chat room into your classes for as little as 1 hour or all the way up to 1 year, where you can use it during the whole school year or use it with colleagues or in presentations. It's, again, just a really simple, great, easy way to add back channeling and have that behind the scenes yet kind of out in the open conversation take place in whatever you're doing. So again, check out Today's Meet over at todaysmeet.com/House of EdTech. And thank you once again to Today's Meet for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And now for my EdTech thought, which I'm calling The End of Google+. Now, I read an article recently that pretty much stated that Google+ just is pretty much going to be dead, for lack of better words. New tools like Streams and Photos are going to be taking its place. And I read this article over on independent.co.uk, and I'll link to the full article in the show notes for this episode. But basically, at the end of February, it was announced that Google is going to be splitting its social network apart, breaking it into Photos and Streams. And this leaves the future of Google Plus a little bit uncertain. The two new features will be run by Bradley Horowitz, and he announced this on Google Plus. He did not mention Google Plus by name or the more popular Hangouts chat service. He did state, as the article quoted, that, quote, Photos and Streams are likely an attempt by Google to take the more popular and successful services that are integrated within Google Plus, such as its photo editing tools and its integration with other software, and basically ditching the Google Plus branding. Google Plus was launched in 2011, but it has struggled to find users on a regular basis. Now, the company hasn't made any formal announcements on the future of Google Plus as a brand, but the senior vice president of products at Google told Forbes that the company would work to split up the different pieces of the service. Now, this actually kind of came as a shock to me, as I really thought that Google was really kind of going to be going after Facebook and building its own social network. But Google is its own beast unto itself. But I'm curious, are you a Google Plus user? I try Google Plus both personally and professionally. But how do you use Google Plus? Do you use it personally? Do you use it more for professional activities? Are you sharing articles there? Do you do anything with Google Plus in your classroom or with other teachers? Did you even know that there's a Google Plus page for this podcast? I do post the episodes if you search House of EdTech on Google Plus. Share your thoughts on Google Plus with me, and I will appreciate them, obviously, and I would look to include them in a future episode. You can share them in the show notes, or you can check out the Google Plus page for the podcast if you just search for House of EdTech on Google Plus, and I'll also link to the show page on the show notes on the website for this. So, is this the end of Google Plus? I'd love to know your thoughts. Check out the article and let me know. That's my EdTech thought. And now for my EdTech recommendation. Using social media in your classroom. In my recommendation for episode 30, I shared Lisa Nielsen's thoughts on using social media to save you time. In this episode, I thought I would share some ways that you can use social media day-to-day in your classroom with students for education purposes. Number one, a tool like Twitter. Obviously, it's very popular, and you can use it to update students and parents and to eliminate the walls of your classroom. Number two, a tool like YouTube. Yes, I believe YouTube is considered a social media type platform. Obviously, the video part of it is maybe not so much thought of as social, but I think it is. You can consider making a screencast of a lesson or adding voice to a PowerPoint or other presentation and posting the video of this for your students to refer to. And then you can have them use the socially oriented commenting feature to continue the discussion about a lesson or a topic. Number three, Instagram. You and your students would be using the power of images. And as we all know, they say that an image is worth, that's right, 1,000 words. And you can capture class events and memories. I think that something like Instagram and using pictures is not only great for older kids, but it can be really great and helpful in elementary school It's a great way to share out the work that your students are doing. Obviously, for security purposes, maybe you're not, Instagramming the faces of your younger students, but you can definitely promote the great things that are happening in your classroom and what you and your students are doing. Number 4, students reacting to homework and lessons by blogging. Have your students start to blog. Head over to Jeff Bradbury's TeacherCast.net website. Check out his kid blogging TeacherCast University course. Check out his ebook on kid blog. It's a great, safe platform that you can get your students writing and putting out their thoughts and creating their ideas and publishing them out on the internet. I'll link to Jeff's resources for a tool like Kid Blog in the show notes for this episode. Number 5, students managing their project-based learning using a tool like Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is a great visual tool that lets you grab pictures and images from websites, or you can upload your own images. And I think that's a great way for students to visually track what they might be interested in or what they're working on. And it's great for collecting resources. Number 6, classrooms connecting over Skype using simple projectors. The popular thing, and Katrina mentioned this in the conversation in this episode, the idea of mystery Skype. And Skype can be used for even so much more than just mystery Skyping. You can have that conversation. You can bring in people and content into your classroom like you never could before. And it's video, it's audio. It hits on all those modes of learning for your students. Check out Skype. Number 7, a classroom full of students can create the ultimate guide to just about anything using a tool like a wiki. Find a wiki tool of your choice. I'll link to some wiki resources in the show notes, but have your students create content and curate content and basically become authorities of what they know and take ownership of what they're learning, and then they can create resources that other people may find valuable using the power of wikis. And number 8, using a tool like Donors Choose or other crowdfunding tools that can allow others to help you in what you're doing in education. And something like Donors Choose is very social media oriented to promote and get your desires and your wish list, for lack of better terms, to promote what you're doing in your classroom and get the help and assistance that can make your experience better for your kids. So those are 8 ways that you can use social media or social media-like tools in your classroom. And that's my EdTech recommendation. And now for the House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Miss Alyssa Malspina. Alyssa is a 15-year education veteran. Miss Malspina is a former history teacher and special education teacher at the high school and middle school levels, and she's also a former high school and middle school teacher librarian. Currently, she's the coordinating supervisor of education technology for Parsippany Troy Hill School District here in New Jersey. She has a passion for infusing new technology into the curriculum and thinking outside the box to pique students' interest and keep them engaged. She's been at the forefront of using Web 2.0 resources and tools like QR codes and augmented reality to make the education experience more interactive. She's presented on topics including QR codes, Evernote, Edmodo, LiveBinders, Poplet, Wikis, Twitter, Pinterest, augmented reality, and Google Hangouts. She's also presented at such conferences as ISTE, EdModoCon, Texpo, Edscape, as well as the New Jersey Association of School Libraries Conference, and many more. In 2014, she was recognized for her outstanding approaches to education and libraries at the 2014 BAMI Awards, which is presented by the Academy of Education, Arts, and Sciences. I 110% believe you should connect with Alyssa. She's on Twitter. Her username is @Alyssa Malspina, and that's ELISSAMALESPINA, and her website is alyssamalspina.com, obviously spelled the same way. So connect with Alyssa, and congratulations, you are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for this episode of House of EdTech, once again sponsored by Today's Meet. Be sure to check out todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech. And be sure to keep the conversation going by visiting my website, chrisnessy.com. Over on the website, you can review the show notes for this episode, number 31. I would love your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode. You can leave a comment on the show notes, or you can email the show, feedback@chrisnessy.com, and you can also submit audio feedback by calling the House of EdTech listener feedback line at 732-903-4869. And you can connect with me on Voxer. My username is cnessy4602, and that's Nesi. And you can also connect with me on Twitter. I'm Mr. Nessie, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech so I can see your tweets. If you enjoyed the House of EdTech, please rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Your 5-star rating and positive review will help keep the House of EdTech front and center for other educators to discover and, of course, enjoy. And you can also support the show through patreon.com by visiting patreon.com/House of EdTech. Thank you to Jeff Herb from Instructional Tech Talk. He is a patron of the show, and he believes in what I'm doing here, and I thank Jeff for his support. On the next episode, I will be presenting the 2015 EdTech Final Four. I recommend that you check out what I did last year in 2014, which will be in episode 7 of the podcast. And I do want to give a special congratulations and shout out to my brother Brian and his fiancee Jen, who will be getting married on March 21st, 2014. I, of course, am the best man, and I'm looking forward to saying wonderful things about my brother, and I just wanted to publicly recognize him and his lovely bride-to-be on their wedding. Congratulations to my brother, and I guess now I'll make sure he listens to this episode to hear the shout-out to him. So let's wrap this up. Thank you for listening, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.